Commander Vex 9 adjusted his 6 sensory stalks, each one quivering with barely contained excitement. Today was the day. After 17 rotations of careful planning, today the Galactic Combat Academy would finally witness what happened when you put a human in their most elite training program. This should be entertaining, he muttered to his assistant, Clax Prime, whose translucent blue skin rippled with nervous anticipation. The training arena stretched before them like a metallic cathedral of violence. 57 species had sent their finest warriors to this facility. Krillians, with their razor-sharp claws, Vorthak soldiers, whose hide could deflect plasma bolts, even the legendary Zephyrians, who could manipulate gravity itself. And then there was her. Her brown hair was pulled back in what humans called a ponytail, and she wore the standard Academy jumpsuit like she was heading to some sort of casual gathering. "Are you absolutely certain this creature is combat-capable?" Clax Prime asked, his voice carrying that particular tone of doubt that made Vex 9's head fins flare with irritation. "The file says she comes from Earth's military," Vex 9 replied, scrolling through the data on his wrist-mounted display. "Apparently, she specialized in something called Special Forces Operations." Clax Prime's skin shifted to a pale yellow, the universal sign of skepticism among his people. "Special Forces? What makes them special? Do they have extra limbs? Enhanced neural processing? Bioelectric capabilities?" Vex 9 shrugged, a gesture he had learned from studying human behavior. "According to this, they just train really hard." The silence that followed was so profound that even the arena's ventilation system seemed to hold its breath. "They train hard," Clax Prime repeated slowly, as if tasting each word for hidden meaning. "That's what it says. And this makes them special. How, exactly?" Before Vex 9 could formulate a response that wouldn't sound completely ridiculous, Instructor Thane Omega's voice boomed across the arena. The massive draconian stood 12 feet tall, his volcanic rock skin scarred from 1,000 battles. When Thane Omega spoke, smart beings listened. When he shouted, entire star systems paid attention. "Warriors!" His voice thundered like an asteroid impact. "Today you face the crucible of ultimate combat superiority. Only the strongest will advance. Only the fastest will survive. Only the most cunning will claim victory." Maya Torres yawned. Actually yawned. Vex 9's sensory stalks nearly tied themselves in knots. "Did she just—" She yawned during the battle speech. Clax Prime confirmed, his skin now cycling through several colors of disbelief. "I've seen beings executed for less disrespectful behavior." Thane Omega continued his speech, oblivious to the human's casual disregard for Academy tradition. "The rules are simple. Survive the gauntlet. Defeat your opponents. Reach the victory platform. Use any means necessary. Show no mercy." Around the arena, 56 warriors began their pre-battle rituals. The Krillians extended their claws and hissed battle songs. The Vorthak warriors entered meditative trances, their hide shifting to combat-ready silver. A pair of Xenthorian twins started generating localized lightning storms between their fingers. Maya Torres checked her watch. "Is she timing something?" Vex 9 asked. "Maybe she has somewhere else to be?" Clax Prime suggested weakly. The arena itself was a masterpiece of engineering designed to push warriors to their absolute limits. Gravity fields shifted randomly. Energy barriers appeared and disappeared without warning. Automated weapon systems tracked movement with lethal precision. The floor was a maze of platforms, trap doors, and obstacles that would challenge even the most experienced combatant. This facility has claimed the lives of warriors from 43 different species, Thane Omega announced with obvious pride. The current record for completion is held by war champion Skull Render of the Vorthak Imperium. Time: 17 minutes and 34 seconds. A massive warrior covered in metallic scales raised one clawed hand in acknowledgement. His reputation preceded him like a shock wave. Skullrender had conquered 3 star systems before breakfast on most days. His combat record read like a catalog of extinct species. Maya Torres was examining her fingernails. "I'm starting to think the humans sent us the wrong person," Vex 9 muttered. "Perhaps this is some sort of elaborate joke," Clax Prime offered hopefully. "Human humor is notoriously difficult to understand." "Take your positions!" Thane Omega roared. The warriors spread across the starting platforms like deadly flowers blooming in a garden of violence. Each one had trained for years, decades, some for centuries, preparing for this moment. The Krillians flexed muscles that could punch through starship hulls. The Zenthorians began generating enough electricity to power a small city. War champion Skullrender cracked his knuckles with sounds like breaking planets. Maya Torres stood on her platform with her hands in her pockets. "She's not even in a combat stance," Clax Prime observed with growing panic. "Doesn't she understand what's about to happen?" Vex 9 zoomed in on the human's face with his recording equipment. He expected to see fear, determination, battle fury, something that would indicate she grasped the severity of the situation. Instead, Maya Torres looked bored. Not just bored, she looked like she was waiting for a delayed transport or standing in line for food rationing. There was a particular quality to her expression that suggested she was mentally composing a shopping list. "Maybe humans process stress differently," Vex 9 said, though his voice lacked conviction. The arena's weapon systems came online with a harmony of mechanical clicking and energy charging. Automated turrets emerged from hidden compartments. Force field generators hummed to life. The gravity manipulators began their unpredictable dance of physics. "Begin!" Thane Omega's voice hit the arena like a sonic weapon. What happened next would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for the next 1,000 years. 56 warriors launched into motion with the fury of unleashed natural disasters. Krillians bounded across platforms with feline grace. Vorthak soldiers charged through energy barriers like they were made of paper. The Zenthorians began teleporting between positions in bursts of crackling electricity. War champion Skullrender moved like living destruction, his massive form clearing obstacles that would have stopped lesser beings. Maya Torres took one step forward and disappeared. Not teleported, not cloaked. She simply wasn't there anymore. Where did she go? Clax Prime's skin had shifted to pure white, the color of absolute confusion. Vex 9 frantically adjusted his recording equipment, scanning across all available spectrums. "I don't know. She was there, and then she wasn't." The other warriors were making impressive progress. A Krillian had already defeated 2 of the automated sentries using nothing but his claws and what could generously be called creative profanity. 3 Vorthak soldiers were working together to punch their way through a reinforced barrier. The arena was filled with the sounds of combat. Weapon fire, roars of exertion, the occasional scream of defeat. But no sign of the human. "Check the elimination sensors," Vex 9 ordered. "Maybe she fell through a trap door." Clax Prime's fingers danced across his control interface. "Negative, Commander. All elimination sensors show 0 human casualties. She's still in the arena, somewhere." That's when the automated turrets started exploding. Not malfunctioning, not overheating. Exploding. One by one, with precise timing, as if someone was methodically working their way through the arena's defense systems. "What in the name of the 7 suns is happening?" Vex 9 demanded. The first warrior to notice something was wrong was a Zenthorian who had been preparing to teleport past a cluster of weapon emplacements. He paused mid-energy buildup as the turret directly in front of him simply stopped working. Smoke poured from its housing, and its targeting laser went dark. Then the next one died. Then the next. An invisible line of destruction was carving through the arena's defenses like a hot knife through crystallized atmosphere. "Commander, Plax Prime's voice had risen to a pitch normally reserved for emergency evacuations. "I'm detecting movement in the ventilation system." "The ventilation system?" Vex 9's stalks twisted in confusion. "The ducts are barely large enough for a maintenance drone." "That's what I thought too." On the arena floor, War Champion Skullrender had reached the first major obstacle, a wall of energy barriers that shifted position every few seconds. He was studying the pattern, calculating the optimal approach with the methodical precision of a master tactician. The barrier control system exploded in a shower of sparks. All the energy barriers vanished simultaneously. Skullrender stood there for a moment, his massive head turning slowly as he tried to process what had just happened. The obstacle that should have taken him 5 minutes to overcome had simply ceased to exist. "This is impossible," Vex 9 muttered. "Those systems are hardened against every known form of attack. They're protected by quantum encryption and psionic barriers." More explosions echoed through the arena. The gravity manipulators went offline one by one, each failure accompanied by a brief shower of sparks and the unmistakable smell of fried electronics. The warriors in the arena were starting to realize something was very, very wrong. Conversations in dozens of languages filled the air as beings who had been focused entirely on combat suddenly found themselves trying to solve a mystery. "Where is the human?" demanded a Krillian warrior whose claws were still extended for battle. "Has anyone seen the small bipedal creature?" asked one of the Vorthak soldiers. War Champion Skullrender said nothing, but his combat instincts were clearly active. His massive head swiveled constantly, searching for threats that he could sense but not locate. That's when the arena's central processing core exploded. The blast was spectacular enough to temporarily blind several species, and when the smoke cleared, the arena had gone completely silent. No humming machinery, no charging weapons, no shifting gravity fields. Maya Torres dropped from a ventilation grate directly onto the victory platform. She landed with casual grace, brushed some dust off her jumpsuit, and checked her watch again. "Time," she called out to the stunned arena. 47 seconds. The silence that followed was so complete that Vex 9 wondered if reality itself had decided to take a break. 56 warriors, representing the finest military traditions of their respective species, stood frozen in various poses of incomplete combat actions. War Champion Skullrender's mouth hung open, revealing teeth capable of biting through starship armor. The Zenthorian twins had stopped mid-teleportation, creating a bizarre electrical loop that made them flicker like broken holograms. Instructor Thane Omega's volcanic skin had gone completely gray. 47 seconds, Maya Torres repeated, apparently to herself. "Not bad. Could have been faster, but I had to figure out the ventilation layout." She looked around at the assembly of galaxy-renowned warriors with an expression that suggested mild disappointment. "So, are we done here? Because I've got a thing at 1400 hours, and this was supposed to be challenging." Vex 9's recording equipment had been running the entire time, but he wasn't sure anyone would believe what he had just witnessed. In less than a minute, a human had somehow infiltrated the arena's infrastructure, systematically disabled every single defensive and offensive system, and completed the course without engaging a single opponent in direct combat. "How?" Plax Prime whispered, his skin now displaying colors that didn't exist in any known emotional spectrum. "I have absolutely no idea," Vex 9 replied honestly. Maya Torres was walking toward the exit, apparently considering her participation in the day's events complete. She paused near War Champion Skullrender, who was still frozen in shock. "Nice scales, by the way," she said conversationally. "Very intimidating. I bet they work great against conventional weapons." Leaving behind 56 warriors who were discovering that everything they thought they knew about combat had just become obsolete. "Commander," Plax Prime said, in a voice barely above a whisper, "what do we put in the official report?" Vex 9 looked at his assistant, then at the destroyed arena, then at the human who was almost to the exit. "I think," he said slowly, "we're going to need a bigger report." Maya Torres paused at the arena entrance and looked back at the assembly of aliens who were still processing what had just occurred. "Oh, and Instructor Thane?" she called out. "You might want to upgrade your security systems. A determined maintenance worker could have done what I just did." With that cheerful observation, she disappeared through the exit, leaving behind the most decorated warriors in known space, and the growing realization that humanity had just redefined the concept of warfare. In the observation booth, Vex 9 began composing what would become the most important military intelligence report in galactic history. He started with a simple statement that would change everything. Recommendation: do not engage humans in combat. Ever. The arena remained silent for another full minute before war champion Skullrender finally found his voice. "What?" he said carefully. "Was that?" Nobody had an answer, but they were all starting to suspect that they had just met the future of warfare, and it was 5.5 feet tall, with brown hair and a casual disregard for impossible odds. Part 2 would determine whether the galaxy was ready for that future. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Commander Vex 9 had seen many things during his 4 decades of military service. He had witnessed the fall of the Nexarian Empire. He had survived the Battle of Seven Suns. He had even observed the legendary peace negotiations where the Krillians and Vorthak agreed to stop trying to eat each other's offspring. But he had never seen High Admiral Korath Prime lose control of his jaw muscles. The Supreme Military Council chamber buzzed with nervous energy as the most powerful beings in the galaxy struggled to process Vex 9's report. The holographic replay had been viewed 17 times, and each viewing seemed to make the assembled leadership more agitated. "Run it again," demanded General Zyrex of the Draconian fleet, her volcanic skin cycling through shades of orange that indicated extreme stress. "We have already observed the recording multiple times," replied Admiral Stenvox, whose cybernetic implants were clicking rapidly in what his species considered the equivalent of nervous laughter. "The outcome remains consistent." High Admiral Korath Prime finally managed to close his mouth, though his 6 eyes continued to stare at the holographic display where Maya Torres's casual victory played on repeat. 47 seconds, he said slowly, as if testing the words for structural integrity. "Confirmed, sir," Vex 9 replied, his sensory stalks twitching with residual disbelief. "And she accomplished this by crawling through the ventilation system and manually sabotaging every system in the arena, sir. While 56 of our finest warriors stood there doing nothing. They were not doing nothing, sir. They were following standard combat protocols." Korath Prime's massive form shifted in his command chair, which groaned under the weight of both his body and his mounting frustration. Standard combat protocols that apparently never considered the possibility of someone ignoring the entire premise of combat. Fleet Commander Gax 9, whose translucent blue form rippled with indignation, leaned forward. "This is clearly some form of cheating. The human violated the spirit of the exercise." "What rule did she break?" asked Admiral Stenvox, his mechanical voice carrying a tone of genuine curiosity. The silence that followed was filled only by the soft humming of the chamber's life support systems and the occasional click from Admiral Stenvox's implants. "Well?" Admiral Stenvox pressed. "Which specific regulation was violated?" General Zyrex pulled up the official Academy combat manual on her personal display. The document was 47,000 pages long and had been refined over 12 centuries of military tradition. "Rule 1, she read aloud, "Warriors must survive the gauntlet." "She survived," Admiral Stenvox observed. "Rule 2, "Warriors must defeat their opponents." "She defeated the arena itself. Technically, that counts as defeating all opponents simultaneously." "Rule 3, "Warriors must reach the victory platform." "Which she did." Rule 4. Warriors may use any means necessary. Admiral Stenvox's mechanical components clicked in what might have been amusement. I believe that particular rule was intended to encourage creative thinking. High Admiral Korath Prime raised one massive hand for silence. The human followed the letter of the law while completely ignoring its intent. Intent is subjective, Admiral Stenvox replied. Results are objective. The objective was to complete the course. She completed the course. Commander Vex 9 cleared his throat, a sound that resembled air escaping from a pressurized container. Sir, if I may, we have received additional intelligence about human military doctrine that might explain this behavior. Every eye, optical sensor, and sensory organ in the chamber focused on him with uncomfortable intensity. According to our Cultural Analysis Division, Vex 9 continued, humans have a saying, work smarter, not harder. They appear to view direct confrontation as inefficient when alternatives exist. Fleet Commander Gax 9's form rippled with confusion. Inefficient? Combat is not about efficiency. It is about honor, glory, proving one's strength. Humans, Vex 9 said carefully, appear to view those concepts as secondary to achieving objectives. The chamber fell silent as this information was processed. For most species in the galaxy, combat was about more than mere victory. It was about demonstrating prowess, earning respect, following traditions that stretched back millions of years. Sir, Clax Prime spoke up from his position near the data terminals. We have received a communication from the human government regarding their representative's performance. High Admiral Korath Prime's expression suggested he was bracing for impact. What do they say? Clax Prime activated the communication display. A middle-aged human male appeared in holographic form, wearing what appeared to be a military uniform. His nameplate read, General Martinez, greetings to the Galactic Military Council, the human said with a smile that somehow managed to be both friendly and slightly predatory. We understand there have been some questions about Lieutenant Torres's approach to your combat assessment. General Zyrex's skin shifted to deep red. Some questions? She made a mockery of our most sacred military traditions. General Martinez nodded sympathetically. We appreciate your concern. However, we should point out that Lieutenant Torres showed considerable restraint during the exercise. Restraint? High Admiral Korath Prime's voice rose several octaves. Absolutely. She could have disabled the entire facility's power grid from the outside, but she chose to work within the confines of the arena itself. She could have introduced sleep gas into the ventilation system, but she avoided any direct action against the other participants. She could have triggered a fire suppression system flood, but she felt that would be unsporting. The assembled military leadership exchanged glances that conveyed volumes of unspoken concern. Furthermore, General Martinez continued cheerfully, Lieutenant Torres has asked me to convey her apologies for any inconvenience. She was under the impression that the exercise was designed to test problem-solving abilities under pressure. She hopes she didn't misunderstand the assignment. Admiral Stenvox's clicking intensified. What exactly is her military specialty? Asymmetric warfare and infrastructure disruption, General Martinez replied. She specializes in achieving maximum strategic impact with minimal resource expenditure. In other words, Fleet Commander Gax 9 said slowly, she is trained to cheat. General Martinez's smile became noticeably sharper. We prefer the term creative problem-solving. And before you ask, yes, all of our Special Forces personnel receive similar training. The implications of this statement hit the chamber like a meteor impact. All of them? High Admiral Korath Prime asked weakly. Well, not all. Some specialize in other areas. Lieutenant Torres's colleague, Sergeant Murphy, focuses on explosive demolitions. Captain Santos prefers electronic warfare. Major Kim has a talent for psychological operations. How many humans have this type of training? General Zyrex asked. with the tone of someone who already suspected she wouldn't like the answer. "Oh, just a few million," General Martinez said casually. "Earth maintains a relatively small professional military force. We find quality more effective than quantity." Commander Vex 9 felt his sensory stalks beginning to tie themselves in knots. "A few million humans trained in asymmetric warfare, plus our civilian reserve forces, of course. But they only have basic training in unconventional tactics. Most of them are just engineers, technicians, scientists, that sort of thing." "How many reserve forces?" Admiral Stenvox asked, his mechanical voice barely audible. "About 2 billion, give or take." The silence that followed was so profound that several species' breathing apparatus audibly stopped functioning. 2 billion, High Admiral Korath Prime repeated. "It's actually closer to 2.3 billion, but who's counting? Anyway, Lieutenant Torres wanted me to ask if you have any other exercises she could participate in. She found the arena quite interesting, though she suggested some improvements to your security systems." "What sort of improvements?" General Zyrex asked, with the tone of someone watching their homeworld burn. "Oh, simple things. Better access control on the ventilation systems, redundant power supplies, physical isolation of critical components." She prepared a detailed report with 47 specific recommendations. General Martinez paused, consulting something off-screen. "She also mentioned that your war champion Skullrender has excellent tactical instincts." She was impressed that he almost spotted her movement pattern before she finished disabling the arena systems. In the chamber, war champion Skullrender, who had been invited to provide his perspective on the exercise, made a sound that might have been pride or terror. "Lieutenant Torres would like to invite him to Earth for cross-training exercises," General Martinez continued. "She thinks he would enjoy our obstacle courses." "What are your obstacle courses like?" War Champion Skullrender asked, his voice barely above a whisper. General Martinez's smile became positively radiant. "Well, they're not as sophisticated as your arena, of course. We tend to focus on practical scenarios, urban warfare, jungle survival, Arctic operations, deep ocean infiltration, zero-gravity combat, that sort of thing." "That sounds—" War Champion Skullrender paused, searching for words. "Comprehensive." Lieutenant Torres also wanted to know if your academy offers courses in defensive strategy. She's working on her advanced degree in military engineering and thought your faculty might have some interesting perspectives on fortress design. High Admiral Korath Prime found his voice. "Why is she interested in fortress design?" "Academic curiosity, mostly. Her master's thesis was on the optimization of siege warfare in zero-gravity environments. She's considering a doctoral program focused on rapid infrastructure assessment and selective systems disruption." Commander Vex 9 activated his emergency recording protocols. This conversation was definitely going into the permanent archives. General Martinez, Admiral Stenvox said carefully, "Would you be willing to share some details about human military doctrine? For educational purposes, of course." "Absolutely. We believe in transparency among allies. Our basic military philosophy is quite simple. Identify the objective, determine the most efficient path to achieve that objective, and execute with minimal waste of time and resources. And if the most efficient path involves unconventional tactics, then we use unconventional tactics. We don't see much point in following strategies that make victory more difficult to achieve." General Zyrex's skin had shifted to a shade of orange that indicated imminent volcanic eruption. "What about honor? What about proving your strength in fair combat?" General Martinez looked genuinely puzzled. "We prove our strength by winning. Fair combat is a luxury we reserve for sporting events and training exercises. But what about warrior traditions, the glory of battle, the respect earned through conquest?" "Well," General Martinez said thoughtfully, "we respect results. A warrior who can end a conflict in 47 seconds has demonstrated considerably more skill than one who requires 17 minutes, wouldn't you agree? The logic was unassailable, which made it even more terrifying. General, High Admiral Korath Prime said slowly, what would happen if the galaxy were ever threatened by a hostile force? We would defend our allies, naturally. Though I suspect any hostile force would quickly discover that humans approach defensive warfare with the same efficiency we bring to everything else. Meaning? General Martinez's expression became thoughtful. Lieutenant Torres's approach to your arena is actually quite representative of human tactical doctrine. We prefer to neutralize threats by eliminating their operational capabilities rather than engaging in prolonged combat. You would attack their infrastructure. We would convince their infrastructure to stop working, yes. Fleet Commander Gax-9's form was now cycling through colors that didn't exist in any known spectrum. How would you convince infrastructure to stop working? The same way Lieutenant Torres convinced your arena to stop working, I imagine. Humans are remarkably creative when it comes to finding weak points in complex systems. War Champion Skullrender spoke up. General Martinez, may I ask a personal question? Of course. How many humans like Lieutenant Torres exist on your world? General Martinez considered the question seriously. Well, every human is unique, of course. But in terms of tactical capability and creative problem-solving skills, I would say Lieutenant Torres represents fairly typical standards for our Special Forces personnel. Typical? Actually, she's still relatively junior. Lieutenant Torres only has about 8 years of experience. Our senior operators are considerably more sophisticated. The Chamber's life support systems seem to be working overtime as several species' oxygen requirements spiked. General, Admiral Stenvox said, with mechanical precision, we would very much like to maintain peaceful relations with humanity. Excellent. We feel the same way. Lieutenant Torres was quite impressed with your Academy's facilities. She said it was much more advanced than our basic training centers. Your basic training centers? Where we train new recruits. The advanced facilities are considerably more complex, but we didn't want to overwhelm your systems. High Admiral Korath Prime made a decision that would reshape galactic politics for the next millennium. General Martinez, he said formally, the Galactic Military Council would like to propose a mutual defense treaty with Earth. That sounds wonderful. I'll pass your request along to our diplomatic corps. They should have a response for you within a few days. A few days? Well, they'll need to review your existing military capabilities, assess potential threat scenarios, and determine what level of cooperation would be most beneficial for both parties. Standard procedure. After General Martinez's hologram faded, the chamber remained silent for nearly 10 minutes. Finally, War Champion Skullrender spoke. I believe, he said carefully, that we have just discovered the apex predator of the galaxy. And? High Admiral Korath Prime asked. And it wears a jumpsuit, carries a watch, and considers 17-minute combat scenarios inefficient. Commander Vex-9 completed his final report 3 hours later. It was the shortest document in Galactic Military Council history. Recommendation: immediate alliance with human species. Alternative outcome: extinction. The treaty was signed within the week. Lieutenant Torres was promoted and assigned to the Galactic Defense Planning Committee, where her 47-second problem-solving approach revolutionized strategic thinking across 43 species. War Champion Skullrender did accept the invitation to visit Earth. He returned 6 months later with a new perspective on warfare and a deep appreciation for human coffee. The Galactic Combat Academy updated their training protocols to include courses on alternative strategic thinking and infrastructure vulnerability assessment. And somewhere in a small office on Earth, Maya Torres was already working on her next assignment, a doctoral thesis titled Optimizing Diplomatic Relations Through Demonstrable Competence. The galaxy was learning that humans didn't just think outside the box, they redesigned the box entirely.